Right, I can look like straight down the camera and like, this is going to the moon, and I'm gonna make sure it goes to the moon. Like, we've got Gerv, we've got the board, we've got these other people joining us. Like, this is gonna go exactly where we want it to go. They had a few people call it the event of the year. Lots of people kept in touch afterwards. We've got our first official partner. What you'll see is a situation, which it might have changed by the time this comes out, but it'll be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that's what we're looking at the moment, right? We're still in the first year of what we've been doing. And that's crazy, right? If you think about it, what I always say is like the genuine people who are reaching out because they care about what we're doing, that's who I want to hear from, right? So let's go. Hello, and welcome to the BAE HQ Quarter 2 review of 2023. I've got a bunch of exciting announcements this episode, so make sure you pay attention, and there's lots of different ways you can get involved, and we're doing a lot more with the community now. And I'm really excited about where we're heading. If you're joining us for the first time, you don't even know what the BAE HQ is. We're an organisation designed to inspire, connect and guide the next generation of British Asians. Let me quickly give you a quarter 2 review, right? So before we go into all the exciting things for quarter 3. So what have we had in these 3 months? That's from April to June. You can see I should have prepared this beforehand. So we had our launch event at Borders and Capital, which had 70 people, which is all lots of podcast guests, lots of people who've really scaled their businesses. And the feedback we got from that was amazing, right? I think they had a few people call it the event of the year. Lots of people kept in touch afterwards. It was very curated because every single person in that room even knew me or Gervir, which meant that we could vouch for every person. And that's so important because, as you guys know, you go to a lot of networking events, people are a bit slimy, it's not fun, right? So because we had that connection, what we could do in that room is connect people together. And that was private. And the reason for that is just make sure that everybody got value from that, right? Because we could, like you said, create it. We can make sure that everybody is helping each other out and are there for the right reasons too. So that was huge for us. It was at Borders and Capital with Future VC helping us out as well. And yeah, it was a very important milestone for us just to see all those people in that room. Me and Gervir got up on stage and gave a presentation about what we're doing, and it was a night of a lot of, we felt the love a lot. So thank you to everybody who came to that event. We've also done a live podcast episode with Asad Hamir, which should be out by now, I'm hoping. And that was at the British International Franchise Exhibition. Bit of a tongue twister name, but I think I got it right. And that was a new experience for me, right? Because I've done lots of talking to the camera. It's also funny now. So I'm just literally sitting in a room with a bunch of cameras here, but I'm now used to it. But this would have freaked me out a little while ago. It was an interesting event because you had the people there in the room who were all trying to learn, and it's in the middle of this massive conference centre, the Olympia. So there's thousands of people walking through. And it was just a very overwhelming experience for me sitting on the stage with Asad to look out and to see so many people. But it went really well. And we should be at the event as well in Birmingham in October. So if you're a Brummie, keep an eye out for that. What else did we have? So we've had, of course, incredible podcast guests coming on. We've had so much stuff behind the scenes, which we're going to announce. So that's going to be the announcements. You know what? Let's get to the announcements now. The first one, and most exciting one, I'd say, is we've got our first official partner, which is Desi City, run by Tani Atwal. And he's been on the podcast before. And he's one of those guys, obviously, I meet so many people and I interview them and all these different podcast guests. But here's somebody who, as soon as he met you, met us, straight away went for a hug. He just had this warmth about him. He really backs us. He's always been supporting us throughout what we've been doing. And there's actually a funny story which he likes to tell a lot, so I'll tell it on his behalf and own up to my mistake. So the first time we contacted each other, so Tiny messaged me off his private account, and he's got he doesn't have a full face in his picture. So I was I don't know who this guy is. And he's oh bro, we'd love to get involved. And I was because I couldn't see any details. So I was I don't know who this person is. So I was give me a bit more detail and things like that. And at that point, we weren't really ready for a partnership yet. Because what we wanted to do, we've been very clear about this, is make sure we built up to a stage where we are now, where we're already, 50 episodes in, 60 episodes in, which means that we've got a true bank of we're here to stay. We've been doing this solidly. We're fully committed. And it's different. Something at the beginning, right? It's maybe somebody gives up, maybe they don't. This isn't going anywhere. This is going to be here for the next 30, 40 years, as long as I'm around. And it should be carried on by more and more people where it's not just dependent on me and Gervir. He always brings that up because he wanted to come on the podcast and I didn't really know who he was and he didn't really give me much to go off. Then I talked to him properly later on and the guy's amazing. He's been on the podcast. You can listen to the episode. So if you go to our website and search for Desi City, or you search for Tanvir, you'll be able to find the episode. But it was his first ever episode, and like you could tell he was nervous, right? His brother Kenny was in the room too, but he smashed it. And that's what he's been doing, right? He hasn't had the traditional path to entrepreneurship, but through grit, through hard work, through making good decisions, through just being a good person as well, like people person, right? He's building that business. They've raised several million to like expand across the world. Should tell you what they do as well. So it's a very good alignment with us as well. So Desi City, what it is an e-commerce platform for like South Asian in particular, brands where sometimes people know you have to go to certain streets and certain areas, and that's not always accessible for people, especially people from like either other areas, people who've got busy lives, people who are maybe not physically able as well. And there didn't really exist something online where people could get these goods easily. And that's what Desi City does. So they've got like thousands of different businesses signed up to the website. So make sure you check it out, desicity.com, and you can find everything all about them. For us, obviously, we're talking to lots of different people about partnership. But what we really wanted is somebody who's got the same alignment, right? Who actually cares about uplifting the community and bringing people together. And like Tiny is that guy. So that's first big exciting news, is that we have our first partner. It's people who really care about what we're doing, care about the mission. Because I'll be honest, like I'm having a lot of conversations with different people who only care about the return on their investment. They pretend to care about helping others. And it's quite disheartening, to be honest, right? When you think everybody's got on their website about how diversity and how they want to see other people succeed. Then you talk to them a bit more, and it's like, well, how am I going to make money out of this? And it's like, that's not the brand you're putting forwards. But Tiny's a guy of his word, and I'm never going to forget, well, me and Gav are never going to forget that they're the ones who backed us first. And they're the belief in us, and that really does mean a lot. So Tiny's obviously listening to this, like massive thank you to you. And for everybody else listening, make sure to check out the website, make sure to check out what they're doing, because they're going to go places, and I'm glad that they're involved with us. Second big announcement. So as this podcast has grown, right? So now we have a huge backlog of people wanting to come on, people who we want on, and then it's difficult to manage, right? This is reality of it, right? Recording in this studio, this obviously costs money. There's a limited amount of time I have. And what we've got to do in that case is just keep upping the bar, right? Because I always tell people this as well. This podcast isn't about helping the guests so much, right? We want the guests to come on because they care about helping you. And what you see on a lot of other podcasts, and like I've experienced so much myself, is that people want to come on to promote themselves, make themselves look good. And it's all about them, right? I don't want those people. I want the people who've made it, the people who've been through the hardships, they've got some battle scars, and they can come on here without really having anything in it for themselves other than them paying it forward, right? And we've had people on such as like Asesh Sarkar, whose company has raised hundreds of millions of pounds. He doesn't need this podcast, but he cared about helping people. And like that's the people that I care about. That's the people we want on this podcast, right? We've upped the like levels of people coming on the podcast, and it's going more towards people who've scaled like major businesses, right? And we've got like about 30 or 40 people lined up. So that takes us into towards the end of the year, right? And some incredible people coming on soon. We've had some incredible people on. But what that obviously means is that we can't showcase everybody. And this is obviously a challenge. One of the hardest things about what I do is that people message, want to come on, and I often have to say no. With that, what we're doing now, so we're making it 3 episodes a week, right? And this, by the time this episode comes out, you'll have had the first of the creates. So what you'll see is a situation, which it might have changed by the time this comes out, but it'll be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So Monday will be what we call labs. And those labs will be people who are either C-suite, VPs, or like head of divisions at startups or scale-ups or major companies where they're not necessarily a founder, but they've got a lot of value to add to people who want to start their own business. So let's say somebody who is the head of people at a major startup, right? They can tell people, founders, other people listening right now, about how to really nail down the area, how to get the right people into your company. Somebody's a CMO, somebody's a chief marketing officer. They can give their advice for somebody who's trying to grow their business as well, right? And it also for you guys, right? Not all of you want to become founders. We appreciate that. And being an entrepreneur, being a founder isn't the only path. It's just a path that often isn't talked about very much that we want to just share, particularly in the British Asian community. But if you're excited by hyper growth, by people doing these really innovative things, you can still get involved in those companies without being a founder. So the labs are based on that. They will be on Monday lunchtimes. The basis of this is that we know that a lot of people are working from home on Mondays and Fridays at the moment. So that means that while you're working from home, you can sit back, relax in your lunch hour, listen to somebody who's done incredible things and give you really practical advice and tactical advice that you can actually implement and use in your own career, right? Because let's say you're a product manager, right? You can listen to a chief product officer at another company and hear their advice, which helps you in your career. And it's just that whole thing about paying it forward, right? Getting these incredible people on to pay it forward and see all of us succeed together. Wednesday will be the podcast that you're used to. So this kind of thing right now, where it will be those, guess you've scaled. So it's also a very crucial thing why I talk about when I say scale as opposed to success. So success is very subjective, right? And if you look at some people who are coming on soon, so we've got a guy called Saranga coming on, who's a venture capitalist who has $6 billion assets under management. Then we have other people who've won TV shows. We've had all these people who've done very good things in their own niche. And we're trying to get the top and the cream of the crop of all of those people. And what will also be released by this time as well as a quiz. So you go through that quiz and that can tell you, like you put in your different details and it'll tell you where we could potentially share your story. But that podcast will be focusing on that like cream of the crop, the people who made it to the very top, who are mainly coming on to, like I said, give it back to be able to help you. From my perspective, that's super exciting. I'm going to get to talk to some incredible people. And it's one of the best things about what I do, right, is I get to speak to all these people, meet them in real life. And also I get to understand their values and their mission, because some of these people, like most of them, to be honest, they've got such good hearts and they are trying to help. But what we can be is the conduit to actually, they can help through us rather than having to organize it all themselves. So that Wednesday episode, that will be the podcast you're used to. Friday will be what we call Create. And I'm calling it Create with an 8, just so it's a shorter in the podcast title. That's the reason behind that. So we've got Lab Monday, Create on Friday. And when you look through the podcast in like Apple or Spotify, and if you're listening as well, give us a 5-star review if you made it this far. What you want to do is you can see like which kind of thing you're interested in. If you're interested in the more lab side, you can watch the lab episodes and you're able to see it in the episode name. So Create will be with creators. You can see what I did there. And those episodes will have, what we're saying is 25,000 followers minimum. And the reason behind that is not that people who've got less than 25,000 followers are any less valuable. It's just the sheer amount of volume of people we have, right? There's so many people who want to come on and we want to showcase, but it's very difficult for us to manage so many people, right? We can't, like, we'll have a backlog of months worth of episodes right at the very start. So if we start with, say, people got 25,000, it indicates they've been working at it for some time. They've really hit a chord somewhere. And that means that like they're not just like had a lucky beginning or anything like that. And you can see that people are resonating with their message. And again, it's an arbitrary line. Completely appreciate that. But from our perspective, we've got to manage it somehow, right? We're a small team. We've got to be able to manage that. And that could change in the future. But if there's anybody you want us to get on for any of those episodes, let us know, right? Because a lot of people ask to come on themselves. But if we're getting from different people in the audience being like, oh, interview that person, that would be amazing. And we keep getting that. That's the feedback we want, right? Like, who do you look up to? And that comes to other points in terms of, say, like charity work and things like that, is that we're growing. At the moment, I focus on entrepreneurship. And again, it doesn't mean that there's other people aren't doing great work. It's just that we can't be everywhere at once. So there's other things we can launch in the future in different verticals as we scale the team, as we get more funding on board. But at the moment, we're focused on those 3 verticals as in a way to enable us to grow. The more we grow, the more impact we can make. And that's what we're looking at the moment, right? This is we're still in the first year of what we've been doing. And that's crazy, right? Think about it. This time last year, the BAE HQ name didn't even exist, right? So I'm recording this on June 19th. And this will be released, I think, July the 5th. So July 27th in 2022, I went to an event. At that event, I was very bored. And that's where we came up with the BAE HQ name. If you put that trajectory of like who you've been able to interview, who you've been able to get in touch with, it's been like a rocket ship. And there's so much more coming, which is what I need to announce now and stop rambling. Another grouping of announcements now is around the team for the BAE HQ. So most of you probably know me if you've been listening for a little time, because I'm obviously in the podcast, but I'm not the BAE HQ by myself, right? It does feel like my life and BAE HQ is very much smushed together a lot, but there is a lot more to it than that. So there's my co-founder, Gervir. So at the beginning of this journey, both of us were full-time on this. But at the moment, for like financial responsibilities and different things that's going on in his life, Gervir has also got like a day job now, right? So it doesn't mean it's any less committed to the cause, But it does mean that things have changed in terms of how we work and things like that. And that's why it's just me today, right? Recording this episode. What Gerver can then do is leverage that experience he's getting at his company and open up different doors in different ways. And for me, it's been such a great thing to have him along this journey too. And even though you might not see his face as much during the daytime, it's because that's the reality of it, right? Is co-founder relationships are interesting. And we've had to manage different things because we both have this deep passion to do what we're doing, right? And working out that scaling aspect and like which bits were both best for and things like that has been really interesting. So Gerver is stepping more into a CFO sort of role, whereas I'm going more into a CEO role now, right? And that doesn't mean it's always going to be like that, but it's just what makes sense at the moment because I have more time available and I'm able to give more of myself at the moment, whereas Gerver has other responsibilities, but it can really use this skill that's built up through the private markets and being at Kindred Capital, Pantheon Ventures, wherever he's been, that he can really own that part, especially with people looking to get investment, for example. So us two there as the co-founders, then we've also got the board, right? So picking a board when you've got such incredible people on a network as we have is really difficult. So what we did is both of us looked at who's the people that we got along with really well, who bring something a bit different and who've kind of shown like they keep supporting us and they're even before like they'd get on calls with us and things like that. So it's also trying not to have too many people because it gets confusing. So there's tons of people who've been on the podcast, people on the network who've been really helpful, but just for the board aspect, we wanted to keep it to a small number of people who we can be in touch with regularly. Whereas if you've got too many people, it just becomes really hard to organize. So that's my caveats there for any podcast guests who've been offended. So first we have, let's go for Dimple Patel, right? So we're doing a live podcast. We would have, by the time this episode has come out, we've done the live podcast with her on June 26th. But Dimple came on the podcast. She's an amazing guest. And her story is just nuts, right? She came from a council estate to being the CEO of a major company that's raised like tens of millions. She brings in the aspect of, because she's really good at the operational side of things. So she was the COO of Truva. She turned around things and her depth of experience and also just the manner in which she delivers it, right? So she'll listen, give advice, give guidance, but she's like fully behind us. And that's such a privilege to have someone like her on our board who really cares and has really got, like, she knows like 20, 50,000 times more than I do. And it really helps. Like from our perspective, to have someone like her there is like amazing. We also have Dr. Vinita Rutten. So she's also been on the podcast. And she brings something very different to Dimple, right? It's very successful in her own right, but in a different kind of field. So she brings in that, like, one massive, like, such a lovely person. I can say this, and she's probably going to listen to this as well, is that before I met her, I was a little bit worried because sometimes people who've got big followings, they can be a bit, you don't know, right? You're not sure what to expect from them in real life. She's 10 times nicer than I could have ever expected, right? And I felt bad for like thinking, oh, maybe she's going to be a bit funny. She's so lovely, like really supportive, and she's been like, just giving her whole heart to what we're doing as well. So she obviously has the aspect of like very good speaker, very good charisma, very good at building a connection with the audience, understanding the audience. What people forget as well is her business is actually really thriving. Like I can't give you the numbers because that's not my place to do it, but it's a very good business that's built herself. There's no funding, there's nothing like that. It's not a venture scale business, but they're doing really well. So she brings that different aspect. You think about it as Dimple Patel has coffee shop background that she grew out, then she then had the venture scale business that she then had got acquired. Whereas Vinita brings the other side of the audience building side and also a business that's thriving from being like profitable and making money the old fashioned way, right? Then the final person is Jay Goodrow. So again, he's been on the podcast too. Really great guest. And I didn't actually know this, but he grew up quite close to where I did. So we've got quite a few friends in common. Very warm. And if you look at his CV, if you go and look at his LinkedIn, it's nuts who he's worked with and the different responsibilities he's taken on. So at the moment, he's the managing director of Block Dojo. And they're one of the UK's biggest accelerators. An accelerator, for people who don't know what it means, is that people join the accelerator and it accelerates them, right? It makes them grow faster, helps them get funding, helps them really take it to the next level. And just seeing him on stage and going to some of his events and the network is built, is also his style I really like as well. So he's like no BS. He gets down to it and you can see why he's got to where he's got to. But they all bring something different, each of those different people we have, right? So Jay has helped so many other people build their businesses and taken that leadership role and very good mentor in that way. So really, really privileged to have them on board. I'm hoping they're listening to this, and thank you all for supporting us. It really means a lot. So you go through there again. So you got me and Gerv here as the co-founders. The board is Dimple Patel, Dr. Vinita Rutten, and Jay Goodrow. Then we've also got a wider team, which is being built up as we speak. So Amir, who's going to be editing this podcast, so he's going to be listening to this right now, he's been our video editor. So at the beginning, I was doing all the editing myself, which is obviously very time consuming, but it's also a skill that I can teach. And what I've been doing with Amir, he's already had video experience, but I've been working with him to hone it into the way that we like the episodes to come out. Taking on a lot of feedback. So one thing about me is like obviously I have very high standards. So we've been training him up, getting him better and better. And you can see that improvement, right? And it's also working together in a small team where it's difficult, right? Because there's a lot of responsibility too. But great to have Amir on board, and hopefully he grows with us too. Then we also have Naeem. Naeem he works at HSBC Innovation Banking at the moment. And what Naeem is going to do is organising the sports side of things, right? So we're probably going to have somebody else join him pretty soon. So we have like a mix of people in there. And what he's going to do is he's organising the football, but there'll be other stuff in the future too. He can get involved as well. Then we've got a bunch more people I've interviewed recently. So we've had about 10 interviews. They're all coming on board, and I can't quite announce that yet because at the time of recording, I haven't formalized anything with them. But we'll be posting them on our page too and giving you an insight into who's helping us out there. But from our perspective, we sent out a call for volunteers and interns, and the response is really good. Yeah, that's been amazing. So really happy with that. Really had some great conversations, some up and coming people who have that hunger and want to help on the community. So my heart feels very full at the moment with those people. Another announcement is our book club. So what we're doing as well now, so obviously a lot of people who listen to this podcast are also likely to be readers, right? Because you care about growth, you care about learning, you care about getting better. And what we're doing on that front is we've now got a book club. So there's 5 or 6 people in at the moment, where what we're going to do is each of those people, we're going to send them books for free by British Asian authors, especially in the personal development, business and memoir categories. So we're not boiling the ocean here, right? There's no fiction because it's got to be related to what our mission is, right? Our mission is to help people grow businesses and to believe in themselves. So our focus is there. I know some people are listening like, oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? But you got to remember, resources wise, we've got to really focus on what our mission is. And later on we can expand and do different things. But that book club right now is focused on that area. What they're going to do is they're going to get sent the book. They're going to write up their lessons on it and their favorite quotes. And then we're going to publish it on our website and share it on our LinkedIn and across our social media. And what that's doing is one is getting a group of people together who are ambitious, who care about growth, making them into a little circle of people who can grow together. But for you, it means that you can't always have the time to read every book, right? But you can read the lessons from people who are like you, from a similar background and at different stages of their career to get those lessons. And you can decide then whether or not you want to actually read the full book or not. I always advise you, because I want to support the authors, right? I want you to buy their books, and that way you can share it around. And what we'll also probably do and get people to do is if we buy them the book, they can also share it with their friends. So you get more and more people reading these stories by these great British Asian authors. And to me, that's quite exciting because it's a nice, easy way for us to get people to, it's a win-win situation, right? If that the people writing the content, they get a free book, they get to learn. We get content for helping you guys, and the authors get promoted as well. So that's a nice circle of wins there that I'm pretty happy about. Another announcement is the mentorship program. So this is going to be a big thing of what we're doing in the future, right? So we're starting off with a beta, which is just 25 people. And those 25 mentors will be previous podcast guests, people who have expressed, people that we know really care about actually helping, right? So obviously, it depends on different people's careers, right? Some people, they're still very, very busy in what they're doing. So it's difficult for them to be a mentor and to give their whole heart for it. Whereas other people just want to start giving back more, right? They're in a different position in their careers. And what we can do is, with all of you listening, we can share, get you to apply to say what you're into, why you want to be mentored, what your dreams are, and also get a good idea of how much you help out in the community yourselves, or what are you doing to put good out into the world, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to help good people. We also want to help out people who maybe don't have the same advantages that other people have, right? So I mentioned Dimple, but there's a lot of other podcast guests who have been on and they came from nothing, right? They've had to do it all of themselves. And those people don't want you to have to do it yourself, right? So we want to build that supportive network. It will start off with just 25 people, just so we can get from the business first, make sure the admin's all in place, because the last thing you want to do is get 100 mentors and then we don't organize it properly. We then fail to deliver what we wanted to. So start small and then expand it bigger. And I can also say, like, I wanted to start big, but the advice we got from some other people was correct and pulled it back a bit. So that's thanks to Nader Sahiblem and Dimple Patel, who advised start smaller. So they reined in my exuberance there. But very excited about that. And that'll be a way again for some of you at the early stages to really get these top level experts, so people we've had on the podcast, to be a guiding hand, right? So we'll have a minimum requirements of like X amount of calls per 6 months, let's say. But depending on how much you strike up a relationship person that's mentoring you, it could be a lot more than that. Another thing that's going to be happening this summer as well is when we start doing a lot more in-person events. So at the time of recording this, I can't confirm anything else just yet, but we've got a deal coming up with somebody who's got a great social space. That means that we can do events very regularly. And for the moment, we are focusing in London, but the plans are towards the end of the year to start expanding to other areas with lots of Asian people, such as the Midlands and like up north as well. So that's all coming, but we're really now pushing into like getting more and more events done. So keep an eye out for that. So I've had some fun in this room talking to myself, but let me give you just some updates from like my personal perspective as well, right? Of other things we're doing. So as you notice, I'm now organising TEDx Chigwell. I've also brought back the Entrepreneur's Handbook podcast. So that's the podcast which came before the BAE HQ, where I've interviewed the founders of Netflix, the founders of Twitter, and people like that. So if you're interested in business, that's also an interesting podcast for you. And it's a different group of people, right? So it's not just British Asian, it's global people. And the benefit for me, and why do I do both of those, right? Why don't I just do one? Or why am I doing 3 separate brands at once, plus my personal brand? And what it is I can cross-pollinate, right? From TEDx Chigwell, I'll meet a bunch of interesting people who I can then introduce to people from the BAE HQ. From the BAE HQ, same thing. From the Entrepreneur's Handbook, it gives me a global network of like hyperscale entrepreneurs that when somebody from the UK wants to expand, I can help connect them. What that means is that network I'm building is so powerful and like it's all interrelated that it gives me greater power to be able to help. And to me, that's what I'm optimizing for, right? And I can be quite open about this, right? So if you watch some of the earlier episodes, you'll know about my dad, or if you've been following me. So also my dad passed away August last year, and that leaves a bit of it leaves that void, right? Of what's the point of any of this? And that's what I've been essentially trying to fill for this last year. And it's been really interesting in the way that, like, obviously me, myself as a person, I've been needing to get support from friends and family and things like that. But what I'm doing here, this is my comfort zone, right? So why am I able, when yesterday was Father's Day, right? How the hell am I able to just come up here and do this, talking to this camera for an hour? Because this is my comfort zone. This is easy to me. And I can get into that zone. Dealing with all of the other emotions of what's going on is hard. So what I'm trying to channel my energy into is to try to help. And by doing the multiple different brands, that enables me to help more people and to make a bigger impact, say for the BAE HQ. Because I'm doing the other things, I can help Asian entrepreneurs more than if I only had Asian people. And that's one of the important things that people might not necessarily realize, is that this isn't about like only Asians winning. It's about how can I connect people from our community, people from other communities, so that everybody wins and they can help raise you up, right? And like I said, on a personal note, the challenge now is scaling this up, right? And we're getting people on board, we're getting more and more help. And it's just, for example, like you listening, right? Like say it's like straight looking at the camera. If you're watching YouTube, like if you guys can support, just in terms of like telling your friends about us, right? You don't need to do anything more than that. If you just get more people involved in our community and involved in helping out, that would be incredible, right? Because it's the stuff that's going on, like all the complexities, like running what we're doing isn't easy, right? Like people don't quite understand like how we're able to do all the different things we're doing, but we're doing it like a full chest run. I can look like straight down the camera and like, this is going to the moon and I'm going to make sure it goes to the moon. Like we've got Gerv, we've got the board, we've got these other people joining us. Like this is going to go exactly where we want it to go. The BAE HQ in 30 years time, there's going to be entrepreneurs who've founded businesses that have changed the world because of what we're doing. And that is the goal, right? Not the following, not the views, not that kind of stuff. It's like, how much impact can we make? And the podcast is one aspect of that, but it's not the only aspect. And the drive behind this, I can say on my part, I can say on Gerv's part, I can say on the board's part, is to really do that impact, right? This isn't the fluff of like, oh yeah, like let's make it. No, this is going places. And this conviction that we have And it's not just the conviction, right? It's the skills to back it up. And that's the thing. You've got to have that level of confidence, but also the skills to back it up. And that's what we've got. And when we haven't got those skills, we're getting people to help us, bringing the advisory in place. So you're listening right now. You're listening and we're, 8 months in, 9 months in, right? You're still early in this journey. There's still so much more to come. And if you can back us now, if you can come to our events, if you can tell your friends about us, if you can leave us a 5-star review or like get involved and like check out the other stuff we're doing, then you're part of that journey too. And thank you so much. Like, it genuinely means so much. Like, if you're still listening right now, thank you. So I'm getting a little bit emotional now, so I'm going to end the podcast there. But look forward to meeting some of you in person. Look forward to hearing more from you. Send us an email. Like, what I always say is, like, the genuine people who are reaching out because they care about what we're doing, that's who I want to hear from, right? So let's go. Hello everyone. Thank you so much for listening. It means a huge amount to us. And we don't think you realise how important you are. Because if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, if you leave us a 5-star review, it makes a world of difference. And if you believe in what we're trying to do here, to inspire, connect and guide the next generation of British Asians, if you do those things, you can help us achieve that mission. And you can help us make a bigger impact. And by doing that, it means we can get bigger guests, we can host more events, we can do more for the community. So you can play a huge part. So thank you so much for supporting us.